Well, hey, Gundam Maniacs, welcome to another episode of Gundam Explained. This one is a special G-Watch episode where we're going to talk about the lore and background of Gundam Seed, since we've got that new movie that came out, and I don't cover it enough on my channel. I don't think I do, but I've got some members of the community that are also part of what makes Gundam Explained move. For instance, we got Ian, who helps with like modding, the Discord community, YouTube mod. And we got Ashley, who's our social admin. She helps sort of like publish the content as it comes out, kind of spread the word and share Gundam stuff. But Ian, Ashley, how you guys doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Doing great, thanks.
Cool. Yeah, well, thanks for doing this because, like I said, I don't cover Seed enough. I have my issues with it for why, but I want to like it more. I don't want to always focus on the negative. So because you guys like Seed and you have a lot of background on Seed, I wanted to bring you on. We're going to talk about it. And so the first aspect I want to talk about with Seed, and I'm going to give mine, and then Ian, I'll let you go, and then Ashley. The idea is how I got into or discovered Seed and what I thought about it. So for me, it was very recent. Obviously, we all know I talk about how I got into Gundam later in life. I only knew about Seed because when getting into Gundam and I found out all these other universes to explore and to watch, when I got to Seed, I was really curious of what to think. On the surface, and because of my background of my judgments with anime, I could just tell from the faces of the Seed characters, I was like, I don't think I'm going to enjoy that aspect. And that is the hard part for me, since I don't have a background in anime. When I first watched Seed, I had trouble taking it seriously anytime there was dialogue between characters because of how they're drawn. And that's more of something I got to get over. But and also the story, I thought sometimes it was more of things that I'm not into when it comes to like military sci-fi stuff. But what I really liked about it was the music and the designs of the mobile suits, right? They're not as grounded as you see, but I think they're more grounded than the other AUs in terms of they look like that F-18 fighter or something, a jet fighter, but just a little more futuristic. And then real quick, jumping to Destiny, surprisingly, I like Destiny. The whole thing, I was like, wow, this was actually really good. I liked how the story was similar to Zeta, so in some aspects, I think they grounded a lot of elements, especially when it came to Lacus and Mir Campbell. Like from the first Seed, I thought that was just not my thing as a story, having a singer and all that, but I liked how in Destiny, they kind of tied real-world implications of being someone that so many people are looking up to, and then the fact that then they have more of a look-alike. That sounds like something a government would do nowadays if they were trying to control a population. But I'm excited to watch Freedom because I like what I see out of Destiny. I like the mobile suits. I did my spiel. Ian, what about you?
So my first exposure to Gundam as a whole was through Toonami back in the day. So it started with Gundam Wing, and then I watched 0079 and all of that, but I didn't really know that like UC was a thing. I just knew that there was Gundam and that there seemed to be multiple versions of Gundam. I didn't know that there was this interconnected universe kind of happening. So when Seed came around, like I didn't watch it on Toonami like maybe some other people did, because I think it came later. I think I watched it on the Sci-Fi Network, as a matter of fact. Cool. Yeah, which was kind of weird because I think I was just scrolling through channels one day and it was there, and I was like, all right, I'm going to watch this, So then I found out later on, like when, internet was more of a thing and everybody had internet in their house by then, kind of more readily, that Seed Destiny was a thing. So I was like, oh my God, I have to watch this. I really liked, cool. Regular, Seed proper. So, like, then I watched Seed Destiny. I was like, I love this, and a lot of people used to say, hey, at least in the little small groups of Gundam that I was aware of at the time, like Seed sucks or Seed Destiny sucks. That's the worst one to watch, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm kind of hearing more of the reverse, where Seed Destiny is getting a lot more like credit, where credit is due, personally, in my opinion.
Cool.
So I like the mobile suit designs. I like the, I think that Seed Destiny kind of is just a built on continuation of where Seed kind of left off. Yeah, it replays kind of maybe some of the same story beats, but I think it does it better from the different perspectives that you get throughout that series.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, very cool. Ashley, what about you?
So similar to what Ian said, for me, I got into Seed around the same time. I think it was around 2004. I was in my freshman year of high school or sophomore year, one of those two. And we just got cable and internet in my house, and I remember watching. It was kind of like in the middle of the night where Toonami
Oh
kind of
yeah.
goes towards like um, Adult Swim, and I remember seeing an episode of Gundam Seed or Destiny, and what stood out to me was the animation, um, because it had that early 2000s kind of aesthetic to it, and it was beautiful. I was really captivated by how the characters look, and I knew what Gundam was because I remember like years prior when I would go to like a relative's place, and my younger cousin was the one that introduced me to Toonami
Ah.
and Adult Swim, and he was like, "Oh, there's this show called G Gundam or Gundam Wing," and I remember watching maybe an episode or two, and I found it interesting, but it wasn't until like finally, having, I guess like the internet and cable aspect, I was able to watch it on my own, and it made me really excited. And then ever since, I think because of the show too, it really got me into like the music, like
Oh.
TM Revolution and Nami Tamaki, who contribute most of the openings and closing songs for both Seed and Seed Destiny. That they also got me more into the Japanese pop culture
Oh yeah.
side of it because of it. And then other than that, like watching it, I really was more into the story. It can be melodramatic, I do
Yeah.
agree. But um, what I found interesting between like Seed and then going into Seed Destiny was like with Seed Destiny is kind of like a slow build up because you're getting introduced to Kira and his friends and the two factions of the Atlantic Federation, Plant slash Orb. Sorry, no, Plant slash Zap, and
Zap.
then
Yeah.
the Orb Union. Yeah, and I think I really started to get super more into it like on the latter half of Seed because I feel like that's when it got really, really interesting.
I agree.
Especially my favorite character being Afrin Zala
Oh.
kind of decided to, I guess like it took him a long time to, stand up towards his father and say, hey, I don't have to. Oh wow. I don't know what's going on.
Worked out.
Um, right. Um, like for him to stand up to his father and say, hey, I don't have to stand up um, and be on the Zap side. I can make my own decisions. And I think that's what really captivated me towards his character and the female characters. And then going into Destiny, what I really liked about it the most, I forgot to mention too, I also like Macross.
Oh yeah.
And Macross has that Sauntress element to it.
Yeah.
So it kind of hugely reminded me of that. And yeah, just overall the characters, the story, and the mech designs too is what really got me into the show.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of things that reminds me of it's reminding me of the things I did like about it. Like to be honest, I liked the Athrun character arc from Seed, even in Destiny. I liked how,
Hmm.
especially the beginning of Destiny, I always felt like he's the most grounded and connected character.
Yep.
Because by the time we get to Destiny, it's like, yeah, he was doing the one thing he wanted to do. Let his, I
Right.
forget if it was considered a girlfriend or wife or fiance. Uh, co-
It's
uh,
kind of, it's not like really hinted at. We know that there's that they are together, so they consider it like a girl, like Kigali his girlfriend.
right.
But a ring was given, so it's kind of lightly hinted at that there is an engagement as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I think seeing Athrun in that situation, it was like, oh yeah, he's doing what he wants to do, letting his girl do her thing while he's just kind of sitting by, and then watching the world unfold around him, and then him having to be like, okay, what do I need to do here? There, I have friends everywhere, and but oh yeah, go ahead, Ian.
No, I was just going to say, I think there's even like a deeper meaning to Atherin's character as like, you know, you said he's like one of the most grounded characters. I would say that, you know, you see him at a time where war breaks out in original Seed, right?
Hmm.
And then by the time we get around to Seed Destiny, he kind of doesn't know what to do with himself because, and we can see
Yeah.
this, tie this to real life with veterans and, you know,
Yeah.
military folk as a whole, that
Good point.
there's an identity crisis almost that you have, that you experience when you get out of the military. Like you almost don't know what to do with yourself because
Yeah.
you've been doing this for so long. You've been taught to do things a certain way. So, you know, he's trying to play bodyguard, he's trying to play boyfriend or fiance or, you know, whatever that might be, but also trying to find himself in the process. And I think by the time we get to the end of Seed Destiny, he kind of truly finds himself.
Yeah, so then that brings up a good question. Before we start diving into the story and the lore, who's everyone's favorite character? And I'll go first and just say Shin, even though he wasn't in the first one. But like in the second one, I was like, oh, this is just kind of that fantasy. He's like this badass dude, you know, like, but young. So it kind of has the Amuro Camille vibes at the same time. He gets angsty. What about you guys? Oh, I guess Ashley Atherin. Is that your...
Yeah, Afrin would be considered my favorite character. Same, you know, the reasons that
Yeah.
Ian pointed out. He is in, and as you pointed out too, like he's just a very grounded character. I've always liked characters like Afrin that are very, I don't know, he's very technical, and
He's thoughtful.
has a lot,
He's...
very thoughtful as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And characters like him just really stands out to me the most because I like how he develops, because at first, you know, he's just following what his father has set for him. You know, he's always, you know, he's kind of flew up in the ranks, you know, he's with Zaf and his father is the commander. And of course, there's that in the first part of Seed, we know that Afrin and Lacus were engaged at the time for military reasons. I'm sorry, for politics reasons. And still, even as things, you know, progress, I just like how he becomes a little bit more stronger and he's able to stand up for himself and say, hey, you know, I'm not going to follow
Yeah.
what my father has set for me. So it's kind of like he's able to make his own decisions. And then that whole dynamic with him and Kira as well, because, you know, they're not only best friends, but they're kind of like brothers in a sense, and they're on different sides. And it's like, how can these two kind of bridge the gap as well?
Cool. Yeah, that's a good one. Ian?
So I would say, I think I'm going to kind of give two answers here because, you know, I would say growing up, it was Kira. Just, you know, that main character kind of hype, I guess, or something like that. And he's a very reactionary character. So, like, if things are not moving, he's not reacting to it, you know? So, and I think that kind of plays into his role in Seed Destiny a lot more. And kind of in Seed, but you see it a lot more in Seed Destiny, I think. But I would say I would be leaning more towards Atherin nowadays.
Cool.
Just because I think he is just this much more relatable character.
Yeah.
You know, Kira is very one note, which, you know, a lot of people point out quite a bit. You know, that's why he has his nickname. You know, so, but I think Atherin kind of just, he has his growth. You see it progress, you know, not to say that Kira doesn't progress or grow as a character in some way or shape or form, but Kira doesn't grow in the same way that Atherin does.
Yeah.
Atherin finds his humanity, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I like that.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah.
If I can mention...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
If I can mention one more character, I should have added this character too, but I really love Kagali. She's my favorite female character. Because, you know, at first, you know, she's just kind of hidden away. You know, she doesn't tell anybody, hey, I'm the daughter of the head of Orb. You know, she's just kind of going in, kind of hiding her true identity because she wants to see what's going on out there.
Yeah.
She wants to help any way that she can without, you know, showing like, oh, you know, I'm like the princess of Orb, or tie into my father being the head. And I just really love, you know, how she truly is. You can see her be more like a teenage girl, and not knowing what to do in the situation, and just seeing how war really is versus,
Yeah.
instead of, standing back from it. So I really love how her character progresses in the series, and then her relationship with Afrin as it develops later in the series.
Yeah, it's interesting because really Atherin and Kigali come from similar backgrounds in a way where there's these certain expectations that are set upon them based on their family.
Right.
And so, but they're just trying to find their way and that brings them together.
Oh
That's
yeah,
pretty neat.
absolutely.
So let's start from the beginning. So with the story of Seed, it was, I guess, Sunrise making another Gundam show, but like, hey, let's try to harken it back to this, what we know from the old school Universal Century. I think a lot of that comes into the designs because it looks like a modern take on that kind of Gundam look, and I think it works for the most part. The other thing that's very similar is you have Earth, and then you have the colonies. They sort of do that same thing, and then you have Zaft and Xeon. I don't know how much that was intended, but instead of new types, you have coordinators, which, as far as I know, it's kind of the same type of thing, which that's what causes the division in humanity to where then there's the two sides that want to, fight it out. The interesting element, though, that I think makes, which is an interesting addition, is what you brought up about Macross earlier, because it has that pop idol singer aspect, which is pretty neat because I think someone that worked on Macross worked on Seed, and I think that was part of why that was brought in. But also it's just kind of neat to just add in another element that wasn't in UC just to make it a little more unique. So I guess that's kind of the lay of the land for Seed. Does that make sense? Any other?
Yes.
Okay. So when we get that, then we get the conflict, and with the conflict, we have what I think is another parallel to UC. You have Kira, who is a coordinator, but he gets caught up in this battle in a way where he's kind of fighting against Zaft. Not that was his intention; it was just where he was at the time. And how did that get to be? Because from what I remember, like it was where Zaft stole the mobile suits from the Earth, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
And the other interesting element too that this does is that phase shift, right? Where it's almost like they're black and white suits until they activate. And now, let me ask you guys: do you think there's any real interesting fiction reason for that, other than maybe for people to paint kits different colors?
I think that's probably part of it.
Okay.
But I would
Yeah.
say that, like, if we look at OG 0079, right? Like, you would see that the Gundam would run out of power ammo or something like that, and you would have to toss away, like, the beam rifle, or something like that. I think that it was kind of like another way to say, you know what, the Gundam's out of power. We don't have to toss away the gun, but we need to go and get it recharged so that way it can continue to fight.
Right.
Okay, it's like a cue within watching the story that you could tell at what stage in a fight like Mobile Suit's at, and that's actually pretty neat. It's interesting because that then reminds me, when you play video games, you have all these indicators on your HUD where you are with ammo, power, etc., and you can't really have that in a show. I mean, I guess you could have a HUD. That would be weird, but yeah, I guess they do that by because if you think about it, even if they do that to have color variants, it's not like that's hard to paint. So it's not like if they really wanted it to be a variant, they probably would have done more.
I mean, a good example too, to your point of like them using phase shift, and I feel like this is an underrated game. It's Gundam Battle Assault 3, which the title is actually Gundam Battle Assault 3 featuring Gundam Seed, and it's just basically you going through the Seed story. And when you take enough damage or you run out, you basically at some point your phase shift will go down, and it'll say phase shift down, and you depower. You still can fight. You just don't have like the extra
Normal
kind of
default like
debuffs you a little.
loadout, and stuff.
Yeah.
That's okay. So that is pretty neat then. And I remember you brought that game up before, and I've heard that if you want to get the Seed story down, you can just play through that.
Yes.
Game.
I think that's a good way. It's kind of like they have some what ifs built into it too.
Okay.
So there's a couple of those, but for the most part, like I think it's a good way to just kind of like if you want to experience the Seed story on a more surface level kind of way, then that's how you can experience it.
Okay, that's cool. So then, once the war kicks off, the battle, like what are your guys' thoughts of some of the story that goes on there? Do you guys want to bring up any specific parts?
One that really stands out to me, and especially since we're talking about like the first half of Seed, the one thing that really in it, I don't know, is this the character Flay Allister.
Oh,
She's this one character that I've never been a fan of her character, but I understand the element that she brought into the story because she was actually her father was a part of Blue Cosmos. That was a part that was responsible for the Julia 7 incident.
okay.
And especially, after her father died and now she's just trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do now? And it's like she couldn't really handle it well, but it's understandable. I mean, she just lost her dad, and now she's in a military situation. And while everyone, I feel like when I was watching the show, I felt like all the other characters were trying to find their place and pick up their weight. Flay was just kind of left behind, and she didn't really know what to do. And then when she tried to throw herself on Kira, that's where the manipulation came in. And then she started pitting Kira against Sai, because originally Sai was Flay's fiance. But when that dynamic came in there and the shift, and then the way Flay actually, how can I say this? Like she said some things to Kira about him being a coordinator, and that really got to him. And then with the manipulation and stuff that she, put him through, it's like it really just threw things in different angles. And then everybody, the rest of the characters are like, okay, what are we gonna do with Flay? She's just she's not, something is not well. And I don't know, it's just like I feel like Flay definitely struggled, I think, throughout the series just to come to terms with not only death, but being in a war situation, and then just the dynamics, I think. And that was a part of the story that I found very interesting for the C portion.
Yeah, that is a good point. And I think that's where Gundam can work, is because when you have a group of people thrown into war, it's like, one, who were they in the first place? And now they're there. Right. How are they going to react? Their world has changed. It's upside down. It reminds me of the White Base crew, where people are just picking up where they can help out. And and then I guess you could see where that happens, where sometimes there's that romance stuff that comes into play when people are out there. Yeah. And Flay was just kind of instigating, what was all that was going on. And do I remember correctly? How did she die? Didn't she die like in a tragic way?
So what happened? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah.
No, I was just agreeing with you. Like, she did die pretty tragically, but
I forgot what it was. What happened?
So basically, what happened was how can I say it? So originally, and I forgot the masked guy's face.
Rod LaCrusade.
Yeah.
I always have a hard time saying his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. So I think, because after, and I'm trying to remember, I know that they split up people from the Archangel. Some of them ended up going on the Orb side.
Yeah.
And so Kigali and all, and her dad kind of took them in. But then the other half, and I'm starting to phase out on their names, but they ended up on, there's this guy, he has like blonde hair, and he was kind of like, he kind of owned his own ship,
Mulaflaga?
I think. No, it was a different guy. He had like a suit on, but he was a part of Blue Cosmos.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, but I can't think of his name either.
Yeah, I have to kind of look up his name. But somehow Flay got kind of taken by La Crusade.
Yeah.
I think it was during the middle of a battle, and she somehow got into... They kind of captured her, pretty much, essentially. And Zaf, at this point, was trying to figure out, okay, what is she doing here? Pretty much. And then the next thing you know, I think she was able... I remember that they were trying to do an exchange in space. So the guy And I know Archangel was there too, and I think they were trying to like work it out to where Flay could go with them or vice versa. But I think she ended up on that ship where the Blue Cosmo guy was, and the other half of the Archangel.
Yeah.
And then essentially when the battle, that last final battle took place, that ship got, damaged and it exploded. And yeah, so that's how Flay died.
Oh,
Very reminiscent of a Camille and his parents kind of situation,
yeah.
almost.
Yes, that's
And
exactly what it is.
and the more that I think about it, they were inserting, if you think very deeply about it and just kind of nitpick it just a little bit, you can kind of see some of the Zeta inspired elements in original
Oh,
Seed
yeah,
also.
absolutely.
That's true. Yeah, even though I feel like Destiny does a lot of the Zeta stuff, it is in Seed as well. Yeah. Okay, so what were some of the I guess pivotal moments that came out of that first season? Was it where I guess a main thing was the Athrun and Kira conflict, right? Because they were friends, but then they accidentally, happened to be on opposing sides. And then didn't
Right.
they battle each other and like it was presumed
Yes.
Kira died because wasn't he like near his mobile suit when it blew up? So,
Yeah. So, and we could talk about this again with Shin versus Kira, because similar things happen there where
yeah.
you think he's dead, but he's not. Which again, I think that's where that nickname comes from.
Yeah.
That he has. Um, so Athrun and Kira's rivalry, let's call it that, because it's more of a rivalry, I would say, in the first half of Seed, and then they become begrudgingly, they find out that they basically are standing for the same thing because they want to see change in a
Right.
more appropriate way rather than the way that Zaft is going about doing it, or the Federation esque faction is. So they Kira accidentally killed the pilot of the Blitz Gundam, and so that kind of
Nico.
set, yeah, Nicole, which kind of set off Athrun, and so they have this huge battle with the Strike and the Aegis, and the Aegis basically clamps onto the Strike and like fires its cannon through it. So you think that Kira died. Athrun manages to get out at the last second, but it turns out that basically he wasn't dead, and Lacus saved him.
And so at this point, what had and these are some of the elements that I forget, and that's why I want to get back into see Dunstan at core story. But at what point is Lacus then on the Earth, the Archangel? Because isn't it how it works, where she was with Zaft and then she's on the Archangel, and that was another exchange they were trying to do?
Yes, it was another exchange. If I remember correctly, when In mentioned the whole battle between Shin, I'm sorry, not Shin,
Kira
with
and Athrun?
Afrin and Kira,
Yeah.
yeah, with Kira and Afrin, another person actually died in the scene too. So it was Toll that was Kira's friend. So it's kind of like both of them lost their friends, and it kind of
Yeah.
led to that pinnacle
Thank you.
moment. Yeah, no problem. And then with Lacus, so I think I remember like Lacus took off. Like I think she was going, like, I'm trying to remember, because I know she kind of crossed paths with Kira after that battle took place, and so she took him in. And even before then, I think she just kind of, I'm trying to remember, I think after her dad, the chairman of plants, I think had a speech or something, and she just kind of
Took off.
took off
Yeah.
and say, you know what, hey, I want to kind of connect with, I don't know if she went with, okay, if I remember correctly, I'm trying to remember. It's really
So
fuzzy.
it was more than just her wanting to take off because she just like, was she aware of what situation she was in?
Lacus comes off as a very smart, methodical character,
Yeah.
so I think
Mhm.
she was very aware of what was happening. She's
Yeah.
one of those
Yeah.
characters I feel like was very wise beyond her years. So
Mm-hmm.
she was very aware of things happening. So she decided to take matters into her own hands, and that's where we get the kind of after that fight where Kira wakes up in the plants.
Wherever her place
Yeah.
is, her headquarters,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he gets the freedom, and we know that she stole the freedom and justice, or the freedom from Zaft and the Eternal, which is the ship that the two units belong on. So she probably had her own thoughts on how to do things and decided, you know what, I'm going to make my own change, and so I'm going to do it how I want to do it, and took matters into her own hands.
It's interesting because this could have been me not connecting the dots, but early on she didn't come off that way. But I think it kind of goes to what you're saying, Ian, because she was aware enough where she didn't instigate drama. She was just trying to pass through everyone that was trying to get her, pretty much, and then eventually, ending up. It's almost like she's an Aug, from Zeta. Like she's this like third party that's like, okay, people should not be fighting, and she kind of puts that together.
Another thing too, when you now that you mention it, especially like towards the time where after Lacus acquired the freedom and the justice in the Eternal, and she's now kind of that commander on that fleet, and a lot of people turn against her, especially on the plant side. A lot of people are threatening her life. Her dad, I think, just got assassinated.
Yeah.
As well. So it's like that whole kind of thing just went under because Lacus is like, hey, one of the things with Lacus is she kind of was in a kind of a quiet, she's kind of like a quiet mover when it comes to how she lays her plans out. And so when she knew, I think she already knew that people were going to be against her anyways because of the direction she was going in versus how her father handled the situation.
A lot of expectations for her, not just by her father, but everyone, the plants. And so that's another reason why I say, like, beginning of Seed is hard to watch for me, but later on it's like, oh, okay, they make these characters a little more dynamic in terms of, what they're looking for. And so, and then isn't that where, it gets near the end, there's some more battling going on. And then I think someone's about to die, right? Isn't it the Archangel's about to die? And that's where, like, Kira shows up out of nowhere.
I actually just remembered the name of the leader of the Blue Cosmos. It's Murata Azrael. That's his name.
Ah, okay.
Guy with the blonde hair, and he had like a suit on.
Okay. That's right. And so okay, I guess at that point, that's kind of where the tide changes. Now, was that Lacus going, okay, Kira, you need to head down. There's, and what is going on there? Is it where is Lacus ordering Kira, or is it at a point where Kira and Lacus are on that same page? And is that kind of where they maybe start realizing they like each other?
Yeah. So from watching it, I think Kira, I think was like resting for a long period of time. That battle really took a toll on him.
Yeah.
And I think the time that he spent with Lacus really helped him over time, because there were scenes too where you could see a little bit of their interactions, and then there was like the priest of the head of the orphanage that the Kleins kind of donated to and had some sort of ownership of. And I think just with the interaction with him and then I guess just with the interactions with Lacus, I think that's what really helped Kira to kind of find his resolve. And that's when he realizes, you know what, like I don't have to be for this war, but I know that I have to get my hands dirty. I know that in the process, people are going to get killed. Innocent people are going to get hurt, on both sides. So yeah, because of that, I think Lacus really kind of helped Kira to find his resolve, and that's when their relationship deepened.
And so then, how does Seed end? Because I'm going to need a refresher on that. Is it where like enough damage was done and to where they just kind of stop fighting? Because it's kind of three sides, right? It's like the Earth, the plants, and Orb. Or I guess the Earth Alliance.
Atlantic
What are they called
Federation.
exactly? Is it?
The Atlantic Federation,
Okay.
and Orb, and then Zaft.
That's
Those
right.
are the three
Um,
sides.
And then there's also Blue Cosmos, which
Oh, yeah.
has that really weird tie-in to the Atlantic Federation as well.
Right. And yeah, what is it where and there's just so much destruction to a point where they just stop fighting pretty much.
I mean, yeah. So there's a little bit of that. It basically comes down to Kira goes to fight Rala Crusade. Hey, I said it correctly that time. Yay!
Yay!
And then Athrun goes to confront his dad, who basically is in charge of this like colony laser, if you will.
Oh yeah.
Which the name is escaping me at the moment.
I think it's the Genesis, I believe.
Yeah, the Genesis system. Yeah.
Nice.
And then we have basically everybody else who is trying to kind of like Orb is the neutral territory. So they're trying to stop both sides from fighting.
Right.
But what we kind of realize is that the only way for this war to end is for basically Athrun kills his dad.
Yep.
And Kira kills Rala Crusade. And that kind of stops the war from there.
Yeah, because those are, I guess, the main instigators in the first place. So without them there, people are kind of like, okay, do we even have to fight? And
Exactly.
In addition to that, too, to add on to it, Afrin actually was going to sacrifice himself to stop that Genesis beam from hitting, and that's where he had that standoff with his dad at that point too.
Yeah, that was pretty. Yeah, that you guys keep reminding me, like you said, Ashley, like the latter half of Seed really it really ties stuff together really well. Okay, so that was it for Seed, and for me, when I finished it, I was like, okay, it had some cool stuff, but for that much time, not too crazy about it. So, but I was like, you know what? I still need to finish Destiny. And I don't know what it was, but from the get-go of Destiny, everything clicked for me, especially when they introduced that character Shin, like I was talking about. Because it seemed like, I guess, like in Seed, a lot of the characters were written to be melodramatic for a specific cause or specific reason, like they had their roles. But when Shin was introduced, I felt like it was more of this angsty teenager where you don't really know when he's going to be sympathetic in a situation or when he's going to be just more aggressive and want to, because I love some of the scenes where like he would see the bad guys like taking out, people, and didn't he like go to purposely like guard the people from getting taken, but he was shooting and killing the bad guys. Like it almost made him seem crazy, but he was doing it for a good reason. And so again, I thought that was a good complex character. On top of that, I loved then where we talked about earlier, where we see Athrun and Kigali. Like that was like a great idea for Athrun's character. And then even Kira wasn't there for a while too, right? It wasn't until later, and it's like I preferred that. I feel like Kira was more of that a way to have an unstoppable force, just to make more tension and conflict occur.
Right.
Because it seemed like, it's funny, because it seemed like, and we're going to get more into specifics of the story, but it seemed like with Destiny, the sides were fighting again, but it seemed like it seemed like there was a goal at that point. Like, we know that there's this organization that, and I forgot their name all of a sudden, the one that had that main laser that they were going to use to destroy everything. And it was almost like
Blue Cosmos.
Okay. So, and it was like he even brought it up, and I forgot the guy's name, the guy that's leading Shin, how he's all like, it's a like a military,
Gilbert Durandal.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's his name. He was like, the
Destiny
military
Plan.
industrial complex exists, we need to destroy it. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. It's almost like what Lacus was trying to do.
Yep.
But it's like they spell it out in this one, but it's just, and I don't know what you guys think, and maybe I looked at it wrong, but Destiny doesn't really clearly define, other than the military industrial complex, good or bad. It's just people in conflict because that's how humans are. But there's this group over here, they're trying to like totally murder people, so we need to take them out. Did you feel that too?
I'd say the lines become even grayer.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
for sure. Like because in the first half of Seed Destiny, you feel like Zaft is like the good guys this time
Yeah.
around. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they paint that picture very clearly. And
Right.
then they're after Logos, and
Logos. There you go. Yeah.
which is the
Yeah.
successor to
Yeah.
Blue Cosmos,
Yeah.
which is with Jabril. And they're trying to find him, so it winds up leading them to invading Orb and all of this other stuff. And so you kind of get this sense that Zaft is the ones who are supposed to be the good guys this time around.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
then the lines slowly begin to gray and gray and gray, and you find out that each side has like their own agenda, where
Mm-hmm.
an Orb is kind of caught up in the middle of it unintentionally, because after Kigali's father passes away from his, sacrifice in Seed, um, Kigali's kind of thrown into this mix of like, now I have all this power, I don't know what to do with it. Kind of like I said with Athrun, there was an identity crisis that was happening. She couldn't
Mm-hmm.
figure out what she was supposed to do. And so these other people are taking the reins. And so what happens is, you get a lot of backdoor dealings and stuff like that, which,
Yeah.
that led to a lot of heartache for the people of Orb, right? And then you got Shin, and Shin's trying to figure out where does he fit in. He definitely
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to go back to Orb because of what Orb, quote unquote, because of his trauma. He's thinking like
Yep.
Orb is to blame.
Yeah.
Orb did not defend
Mm-hmm.
us. Orb didn't do anything.
That's right,
So what am I
yeah.
going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go and defend. I'm going to go to Zaft, because Zaft is the ones who are going to, and we could talk about propaganda and all of that too. Like I'm sure there was a lot of propaganda and how he wound up with Zaft, Um,
Yeah.
so, you have the
Um,
lines just get so gray at one point, and they
Yep.
try to make Kira the bad guy. I feel like, again, Kira does not react without a cause to
mm-hmm.
react. So how do you get
Right.
Kira to react? You start to have all these problems start to appear. And, the other theme here maybe is history is doomed to repeat itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing too. Oh, go ahead,
No,
Adam.
no,
Sorry.
you go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, to kind of add on to what Ian mentioned, he covered a good chunk of it. Um, another element to throw in there was Gilbert Durandal. He had this destiny plan,
Yeah.
which is basically, you know, in order to bring more coordinators into the, coordinate as more coordinators are born, it's like, hey, we can determine, what your fate is, what you are skilled at, what you're supposed to do, while coordinators should be free to decide on what they want to do and how they want to live their
Yeah.
lives. And then on top of like what Ian mentioned, there was a clash like with Shin and Afrin and Kigali, especially in I believe the first two episodes, or at least episodes 2 or 3, where Afrin and Kigali showed up on the I think it was on the Zav shift, and that's when Shin was like, "Oh, so you're a part of Orb,"
Oh,
and he
yeah.
just had
He would have that
this
angst
attitude
against
about
him.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, just
again.
because
Yeah.
of that trauma. So
Yeah.
just the destiny plan, and then the clashes, and then it's kind of a blurred line, because you can't really see any side as good or bad. I mean, you have like groups of people or innocent civilians, in each of these factions that are hurt, because people are attacking the coordinators are affected, vice versa, attacking the neutrals, they're also affected. So it's kind of like,
Yeah, and they're showing too the personal trauma people go through, where you can't really use that as a way to describe a side someone's on, because like they
Right.
even show the what do you call it, when they show Shin, like what happened to his family, because isn't it where like I guess there was artillery shells falling and then he was trying to help them get away, but they all got hit by it instead of him?
yeah. So so essentially,
Survivor's Guild.
well,
Yeah.
Survivor's Guild, yeah. And it was kind of like fate, because what literally was happening was, his family, his mom and dad and his sister Mayu, they were running off.
Yeah.
And then Mayu accidentally dropped her phone.
That's right.
And then Mayu was like, I need my phone. I need my phone, which is kind of, a normal, preteen girl.
Yeah.
Her life is her phone. And so when she dropped it, Shin, I think it was fate, unfortunately,
Yeah.
because Mayu dropped the phone, that's what kind of saved Shin. And
Because he wanted to do something nice in that,
Right.
take a risk to do something nice, but
Mhm.
he would have been killed if he wasn't there, but he wasn't there, so they got killed, so that allowed him to be in this vengeful way, because one of my favorite scenes in all of Gundam has to be in Destiny with Shin. I posted a video with some synthwave music, but it's him going in beast mode. Like, one, I love when a mobile suit is launched in multiple parts and then it's forming and he's like, well, first he's going through that cavern to get behind the gun, and then he combines, and then he's just wiping out, like almost by himself. He is just taking out the guns, wiping out the enemies, even using knives as a robot. That's pretty awesome. Making things blow up. And then you see everyone's face at the end where they're like, oh my God, Shin just beast mode destroyed. But he has that. It's believable as a character because we saw what he went through. And so when he is acting the way he is with Athrun and other characters, or you see him excited about something versus not, you know where that's coming from. And that's, again, another reason why I like Destiny. And so, okay, so with Destiny, the other interesting thing that occurs too is more development of Lacus. Because what happens is she's gone. She's doing her own thing now. She is her Ayug, where then Zaft is like, well, we still need that propaganda machine running. So then they get a lookalike named Mir Campbell to play this character, which at first I was like, okay, they're doing this again. They have to get a lookalike just so they can continue to do the pop singer stuff. Like, come on now. But as it unfolds, it becomes a tragic end for her. It also had some situations with Athrun where they were trying to, again, do the political propaganda thing by having Athrun and Mir around each other to maybe spark something to where Zaft can win some political points by having Athrun fall in love with this girl, even though it's not Lacus or whatever. And, but it doesn't go that far, but she still gets caught up in this and gets herself killed. And so again, they did a great job of taking a character, but then them getting caught up in something to where then it becomes a huge, big change and almost tragic, which I thought was, and that reminds me, isn't it also in Destiny where there's those, is it 2 or 3 characters? One's a girl where they are like crazy or something, aren't they? Like,
yeah, so there's 3 characters. One of them, oh my God, I forgot. Well, her name is Stella.
Yeah.
So Stella was one of them. And I forgot the other 2 characters, but yeah, they were given some sort of injection.
That's right.
That
try to enhance their abilities.
Right.
They really leaned into that cyber new type style of of brainwashing, basically, in some way. Yeah, but Stella was the standout.
Yeah, and wasn't that one where Shin, wasn't there a scene where she tried to kill herself by like jumping into the ocean and then like Shin saved her, and then that was another moment Shin could have there, and that character can have there. Again, another neat, again, with their characters, really well done.
If I can also add too, when you was mentioning Mir Campbell, another element I kind of noticed was that how Mir got picked to be Lacus. It was like an audition process. They were pretty much scouting for girls that kind of match Lacus's age, and Mir seemed to be the one that kind of fits Lacus in a sense. And she had to go do plastic surgery actually to alter herself to look like Lacus too. Even though it wasn't like mentioned, but there were flashbacks I've noticed that cover that. But yeah, just that whole element where she was also like given like little details of like, well, yeah, Lacus and Afrin were once engaged, and maybe if you get on his sweet side, maybe
it was like she was doing things for the sake of being Lacus again. Where it was almost like she was told to live a certain way, and she was willing to go with it because on the surface, oh wow, I get to replace a pop star. But once you're like
Yeah.
living that, she then realized, okay, there's more going on here. This thing I'm a part of is deeper than I realize. It's not on the surface me being a pop star. I'm being
Right.
used and it's affecting people.
My 5 seconds of fame, basically. I think she kind of got caught up in that, and unfortunately, it really backfired on her.
Okay, so isn't there another cool character that he was a bad guy? I think even in the original, and he becomes like a good guy, and he's like crazy, and then he has the like some commander that is in love with him or something, but she's super serious.
Oh, Mulaflaga? Is that one Mulaflaga?
Let me look it up because I thought it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a character. His name is Ray.
Oh yeah.
He I think went to the same. He's like I think he went to like he's in the same level as Shin, Lunamaria, Mayrin. And he's essentially like a clone or kind of a.
He's a clone.
One of the of Lafaka's dad.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's Mulaflaga, Rala Crusay, and then Ray. They are all part of this cloning experiment.
Right.
Surrounding Laflaga's dad.
Ray Zabarel. Okay, I'm looking that up.
Yes.
Yeah. And he piloted I think it was the Legendary Gundam or Legend Gundam.
Legend.
Yeah.
But I don't know is that the same guy, but there's this one guy that, and I want to say he got a mask.
So then it would be Laflaga at that point because he sacrifices himself at the end of Seed to stop this cannon from killing the Archangel.
But wasn't he bad for a little bit?
No.
Okay, then I might be thinking of someone else.
He was bad. Technically, he was part of the Atlantic side, the Atlantic Federation or whatever you want to call it. During the Seed Destiny for part of it, he doesn't remember who he was. Like they literally did the brainwashing on him, and so he doesn't remember who he is. Then slowly, as the season progresses, he starts to remember that he might have ties to the Archangel, and so he eventually remembers.
Okay, because I'm trying to find out. There was a dynamic. There was and it might not be this character, but he had like a girlfriend or something that was a commander herself.
Oh,
she was more serious.
I'm trying to remember. I'm probably thinking of the guy from Seed. He had like brown hair and he had a girlfriend. I think it was during that scene where Kogali reunited with like her bodyguard or something, or I guess he was kind of like a parental figure to her, but maybe I don't know.
I'm totally blanking on this.
Another reason that you have to watch these multiple times.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like, and it's so many episodes that you have to go through, but like sometimes you'll pick up on little things and forget about it and then be like, hey, that was a neat thing, and just another reason to watch it again. Another character I wanted to bring up that I thought was pretty cool is Lunamaria Hawk.
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of liked how her character was. She was a little subtle, like I guess there wasn't a lot going on with her, but she was a part of the team.
I'm actually glad that you brought her up because she also had her sister, Mayrin.
Oh yeah, she was like one of those operators on the.
Yeah. She was one of those operators while Lunamaria kind of took more of the pilot role.
Yeah.
And what's interesting too, with their dynamic was like there was a split between them. There was this particular moment where, it was Shin, Lunamaria versus Afrin and Mayrin.
Oh.
And they started to clash. And I think that's when Kira finally appeared halfway through the series, and they're fighting, they're kind of pitting against each other, and in an instance, I don't know, I'm a little fuzzy on this one, but I think Mayrin got in the crossfire, which made Lunamaria thought that she died, which led Lunamaria into this kind of spiral depression, and I think that's how her and Shin grew closer,
yeah,
because of their trauma.
That's
And
right.
while Maven really stood on the side of Afrin, despite her having a crush on him,
Yeah.
just like most of the girls in the series, but she kind of wasn't really for, what Zav was doing, and so she's like, you know what, I'm gonna follow where Afrin's going, and soon enough, she's already kind of on the orb side at that point.
That's a good point because that does kind of check out. If you think of the course of the story, these characters' dynamics become complicated where people are then against people they normally wouldn't be. And so I almost feel like that gives really even more motivation for Kira to show up because, yeah, there's conflict, but now it's conflict where people are fighting against people that they shouldn't be.
Right.
And I guess that's a reason to call in Kira.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, I guess, what was the ultimate showdown? I guess in Destiny, because wasn't there a Kira and Shin moment where they were like almost destroying each other, but they couldn't, and then didn't Atherin kind of come in and
Yeah.
intervene to like stop
Yeah.
it from? So what was that trying to tell us? That Shin and Kira are neck and neck, or could it have been that Kira might have stopped Shin if Atherin didn't show up?
I don't know that that is the case there. I think that what they're kind of setting up, at least in what I think you're referencing, is when the Strike Freedom and Infinite Justice show up,
Yeah.
which is like that last third of the show. And what I think that's really saying is like, okay, Shin's like, I thought I killed you, because he destroyed the original Freedom, but that's not really what happened. So then Atherin kind of finds his purpose, that kind of like what I was alluding to earlier. Like Atherin finds his purpose. His purpose is to protect those that he really cares about, which is kind of really just kind of redefining what also Kira stands for, because that same message. And I just watched a string of those episodes a few days ago, actually, ironically.
Oh.
And you kind of see it. Lacus being that character who is like, what do you want? Like, what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to sit there and watch things unfold, or do you want to do something about it and take care of business and make sure that you can live in the world you want to live in?
Yeah.
I know what I want, and I want to save people. I want to be there to protect people. So what do you want? And so she asked that question to both Atherin and Kira, and they both kind of decide once again, reaffirming their resolve. And that's an anime trope across the board. What is your resolve? How far are you willing to go to get the job done, to be successful? So Atherin figures out he really wants to protect those that he really cares about. And so he says, you know what? I'm injured. He was still injured from when Shin rammed the Destiny sword through his suit too. Shin has a habit of stabbing people through his stomach, apparently.
That's true.
Yep.
And so Atherin gets involved and basically says, you know what, back off. Like, I know what you're trying to do here, but you need to see things differently. You're being influenced for the wrong reasons. I understand why you're doing what you're doing, but you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And so that kind of leads into the final like push to stop Jabril and everybody else that's kind of involved at that point. Durandal.
Yeah, because it gets revealed that there's that. I'm looking this up. The Neo Genesis, which is like the next. This version's like Death Laser or whatever.
Laser,
yeah, and
Kind
then
of like a rehash of that.
yeah, which it's interesting because a lot of times you realize some of that stuff. Yeah, it's giant laser, but that's not the point. It's really the conflict between the characters that are involved in that. The laser's there for some cool destruction action, which always works. So then it ends where it's almost like nothing really gets resolved, just the new threat gets destroyed, but we still have factions that exist.
Yeah, essentially too, like in the last few moments of the series, you kind of see like after the battle, you see some really interesting paths that are chosen by the characters. So like for example, Kira, he goes from being on Orb for a while and now he's like a ZAF commander. Afrin attains citizenship to Orb to not only protect Kigali, but he also becomes the commander of Orb essentially too on the Orb military side. And then Shin, and I believe Shin is kind of either on the Orb side or he might stay with Zaf. I'm trying to remember that part. But I know
I think he stays with
Mayrin.
Zaft.
Yeah, he stays with Zav. And then Mayrin actually, I think she kind of like retires from the military, but she still has an intricate part because she still wants to play an active part in the whole thing, but she's kind of working kind of more behind the scenes on the Orb side as well.
And that's interesting because it's just another series that ends where it's like, okay, it resolved the enemy of the moment, but to me it's like, okay, there's more that you can do with Seed. So I didn't see Stargazer. That was a movie that came out a while back, and I guess isn't that even more in the future?
I think it's close.
Let me
It's
look it
not
up.
too far in the
Stargazer-
future.
Yeah, Stargazer kind of happens kind of like, I would say it's more around
Oh,
like
73.
the beginning. Yeah, 73.
So
So,
that's
kind of right during the time of Destiny. for
yeah,
that.
interesting. Okay, so that's interesting because
Wait a
then
minute.
Freedom that comes out is like right after that then.
Yeah, and then there's also another series I'm actually reading it actively. It's called Gundam Seed Eclipse.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yes.
And
I've heard of
that actually takes part in the middle of Seed,
Oh.
the Seed Destiny. So it's kind of like maybe like a year.
But it's
Or-
neat how they're all kind of close together anyway. So as
Right.
you're reading various, whether it's a manga or watching
Okay.
a show, they can introduce things that don't necessarily contradict. You know, in terms of
Stargazer. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
but
no.
Stargazer
No.
takes place at the same time as Destiny,
okay,
according to what I'm reading here.
and then Freedom is right after.
It's 2 years after, so
2 years
75.
after.
So that's
Yeah.
pretty neat. So yeah, that's the thing where we end up then is Freedom. You know, I've heard that there would be a Western release, but I haven't heard not only when, but then is it going to be an English dub, which I think they would do, just because.
hope so.
Yeah, essentially, from my understanding, because I've kind of learned recently, kind of like how the business tie-ins come when it comes to, acquiring licenses for voice acting and stuff.
Yeah.
Because after interacting with a lot of voice actors and kind of learning, from them, essentially, I feel like we won't get the film until maybe June or July because it's always this 6-month gap
Okay.
to when we attain the license. And I know usually at first they will probably do a theatrical release in in local theaters and sub, and then maybe later on they will do like a dub release too. Just from my understanding of how this works. And
Yeah,
then
they
the
did that with
biggest-
Cuckoo's Doan's Island too. After a few months, they had like a theater release and then a dub further down. Yeah.
Right. And then on top of that too, Destiny and Seed pretty much has this really interesting kind of change of cast because we are kind of familiar with the Ocean dub,
Oh,
which
okay.
was the group from Canada. They usually a while back they usually attained a lot of Bandai releases or Sunrise releases when it came to Seed
Yeah.
or other Gundam shows, and then I know Ocean Group kind of went another way and they don't do as much animes anymore. So I think it wasn't until years later Funimation got the license for streaming, and at the time on that platform they both had the dub and the sub. And then the remastered happened I think 2011 and 2013 for both, Seed and Seed Destiny, and that's when what is that company called? It was called like NY something. I forgot the company. They did like the new English cast for both films.
Wow.
For both series. Yeah. And then now Crunchyroll has the license, but they don't have, I think the license expired for the dub. So the thing is, if we do get that theatrical release and we get a Western release, most likely Crunchyroll / I guess it will be part of Funimation or Bang Zoom.
Yeah, I wonder
Funimation and
because
Studios will do it.
Crunchyroll are the
yeah,
same company now.
yeah,
They
because
just merged.
Funimation, I think in April is going to be completely gone, and Crunchyroll even,
Yeah,
I think, shut down. I think Right Stuff Anime, or that's what's going to be happening, or something. It's like,
yeah,
It all kind of merged
yeah,
together.
I'm worried
right.
about that type of stuff because it's like in Japan when they want to dub or something, they're like they don't have that many options when it comes to English partners.
I
Yeah,
don't I don't think that it's going to impact us too much right off, at least right
yeah,
now, because I think anime is at a all-time high over here, especially
yeah.
nowadays, like with the newer generation, like they want to get as many releases over here as possible. And so there's a lot of
Hmm.
simulcasting,
Yeah,
simuldubbing going on. There's a lot of I think it just depends on the contract with the company. So like
but
Dragon
that's
Ball,
the
for
Yeah.
thing.
example.
Like
Yeah.
Sony has that grasp now because they own Crunchyroll. So a lot. So with
Yeah.
Funimation
Mm.
cut out of the picture, it's like, and it's interesting to see where shows are being removed, anime's being removed from Netflix and Hulu. So they're all
Yep.
trying to get it, which I can understand having one service for anime, but I also think it's a good idea to have anime go on other services so people can discover it.
Right.
It's very
So
true.
okay, I want to end it real quick to ask you guys favorite mobile suit from the series. I will start because I don't think I am that passionate about it like you guys would be. I would say the Impulse Gundam just because that's what Shin used and it actually looks cool. It has a lot of just modern Gundam looks to it. But I will say that from this new film, the Metal Robot Spirits that you have of the Freedom, Ian, and then even that new Mighty, I think it's called the Mighty Freedom, look really cool. Yeah, that looks cool.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Let me mute myself
Oh,
for
no, it's
just a
cool.
sec.
Well, Ashley, what's your favorite Seed suit out of all
Um,
Seed?
Justice Gundam. It's like I'm a
Cool.
huge Justice Gundam. I love all the variants of it. I also like the Destiny Gundam as well. Because I think like one of the big appeals with the mobile suits is just the wings
Yeah,
that each
that's
mobile
always
suit
a cool
has.
thing. That's the one thing I was looking at this picture, the Impulse, and it doesn't really have a
Right.
big system like the other suits do. And I always like that look. Yeah.
Yeah, and with the Justice Gundam, what I like essentially, it's like a knight.
Oh yeah.
Afrin's nickname is actually the Red Knight, so that's why his suit is more red, most of them anyways. And I don't know, I just how it just the look of it, the build,
And
and then the Destinies as well.
you just built a little SD one, didn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
here it
there
is.
you
Right here.
go.
So, yep.
All right, Ian, what's your favorite Seed suit?
Strike Freedom.
Oh, nice.
I just like it's interesting. Like when you see, especially in the intro, I think the intros like really just capture the
Oh
suits
yes,
so good
absolutely.
Yeah.
and like tease you. You're seeing this big suit mysterious in the background. You don't know what it is. You just know that it looks kind
Hmm.
of like a Freedom, but you're like, what is that? And then it shows up, it's got these gold joints, like,
Yeah.
it just like it stands out. And so the Strike Freedom, I like the idea of the wings of light when the dragoons are deployed and all of that. And
Hmm.
it's just a really cool suit.
Yeah.
I also just got the master grade of the Freedom or the straight Freedom. It's the 2.0 one.
Oh,
And I
cool.
like how it has that kind of more like metallic silvery finish to it, and hope to do some customs with it to kind of make that stand out.
I love that stuff. Yeah, the
Yeah.
little color variations the suits have, like on the Impulse. I like the light blue that's accented on the
Hmm.
front skirts and on the top. That's cool. Well, guys, that does it. Yeah, that's our little rundown of the Seed series in anticipation of that movie. Cannot wait to be able to see it. I mean, I guess really
Same.
anyone could I guess get a cam rip or something, but I don't think it's as enjoyable when it hasn't been properly translated. That's why I'm waiting.
Right.
I want a proper translation. But any final words about Seed?
Um, I just want to say though, I hope everyone would give it a shot. I mean, I may not be everyone's cup of tea, but you can't really formulate your actual opinion until you actually discover it yourself.
And it takes
Don't
time because
always,
there's so many
yeah,
episodes.
yeah, it takes time, and don't always take people's opinions at point value. I think it's very important for those to establish their own opinions by
Yeah.
giving the show a shot.
Figuring it out, yeah, watching it yourself, and also really being honest with what you like about something, even if someone else doesn't.
Right.
Yeah. About you, Ian, anything?
I think I'll just kind of, mirror what Ashley's saying a little bit there and say, like, you're hearing what we have to say about it, what our thoughts are, but please go experience it for yourself, see what you think of it.
Mm-hmm.
The internet is a very big place with a lot of varying opinions, and
Yep.
it's really just good for you to experience it for yourself. Try to think about like the themes a little bit more deeply. Don't just see it for what it is on the surface. Cause yeah, I mean, you can say it's a UC clone, and it very well is in a lot of ways, but it stands alone in a lot of its own ways too, especially with all the branching stuff that they have going on, whether it's Stargazer, Astray,
Yeah.
uh, you know,
It's a new
things like
experience.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very new experience. Go watch it, check it out, and hopefully you'll enjoy. And I'd love to talk to you guys about it in the Discord.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right. So,
absolutely.
yeah, leave any comments below in this video, what you think about Seed. Join our Discord, talk about it. Yeah, just more talking, getting people into that stuff's always fun. But anyway, well, I want to thank you two for doing this. This was a lot of fun. Stay tuned for more of these type of exclusive podcasts with members of the community. So if you're a supporter, you could be part of this. So anyway, guys, yeah, thanks a lot. We'll talk later.
Take care.